Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
What is going on, CaneSport? It is Izubee, Charles, and good morning to you all. It is April 18th, 2023, and I would like to thank everyone for joining us on another episode of Good Morning CaneSport. Today, I'm joined by Matt Shodell as we break down the news of the day. And Matt, first off, like DJ Khaled would say, another one. Miami has landed yet another recruit late last night or around 7 o'clock yesterday. Miami got another commitment in that 2024 class from south of Broward, running back Chris Wheatley-Humphrey. Matt, you were able to talk to his head coach that kind of broke down the commitment, when he knew Miami was a place for him and what type of player he is for the people that aren't familiar with him. From talking to his coach at South Broward, just what were your impressions and what do you think of Chris Wheatley-Humphrey?
Well, just like with Gary, Izubee, I'm not going to answer your question directly. First, I'm going to go on my usual diatribe, which Gary doesn't know what that word means. He'll look it up, so it's fine. So basically, it's making me a little nuts because I don't understand this newfangled thing called Twitter or whatever, the social media, because Chris was going to commit today because on Saturday he pretty much knew he was going to commit, and he told his coach as much. The coach said, just wait till Monday, sleep on it, make sure, because let's face it, Chris was at the spring game. You get carried away. If you're a young man and you're watching something exciting and you feel like you're part of the family, and he grew up a Miami fan. He's got a miniature Miami flag in his room, and he's got letters all around his room that he got from coaches, things like that. Grew up a fan, family's fans. You know, he wanted to be a Hurricane. So I get it. But then he sets his announcement. He calls the coach that he commits, and they make a graphic. He's going to send out this big thing. But of course, it leaks out. And Miami coaches are tweeting, the hurricane flags and whatever. And, we had a good idea, who it was going to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. People are putting crystal balls as Chris Wheatley-Humphrey's, good chance he comes to Miami, could be soon, things like that. It's like, this is the new normal. I don't understand. It used to be, you weren't around, you weren't even alive in these days, but there were actually players back in the day who nobody even knew they were committed for a long time until the reporters would happen and maybe call them or run into them and, what's going on with your recruitment? Oh, I committed to wherever, There was a young man named Romeo Davis who ended up playing for Miami. Nobody even knew about him. Miami coaches decided to keep him under the radar from other schools. There was no huddle back then. There was no camps from all these major services where people would see him and things like that. So you could do stuff like this back then. And that's sort of what has hurt Miami. People want to know what happened to Miami, what went wrong. And obviously there was a failure in the way they were recruiting. They stopped recruiting by doing all the homework and started going more off rankings and stars and things like that, which doesn't work. But on top of that, the advent of recruiting services, having their own camps to promote all these student athletes from everywhere in the country, it basically let other coaches who were not in this area, who were not tuned into every single local coach in Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County, find out about every prospect that might be able to help their program and get on those kids early. Whereas it used to just be Miami was the only program on those kids early. So now that's my diatribe. I'm done. That's my DNR for the day. It doesn't mean do not resuscitate for those of you that are just starting to watch for the first time. It means daily negative rant, because I am always negative and I'm always ranting pretty much on a daily basis, whether we're doing this show or not. So anyway, as for the coach, the coach was, of course, like all coaches, very complimentary. No coach is going to say, I don't know why Miami took him. He's terrible. Nobody says that. But Coach McCray, he's been around the block once or twice. He knows what he's doing and has a great program up there. And he says Chris is undervalued. I think Chris is not rated by almost all the services. I think one service rates him a 3-star. But that's okay, because sometimes an under-the-radar prospect can become a great player. And if you're in the camp where you just trust the coaches and believe they know what they're doing, then you think this is a great get. If you want a guy who's a 5-star or a 4-star, you're probably not too happy this morning. But the comparison here, he's sort of, I don't want to say he's in a Mark Fletcher mold, but he's in a Mark Fletcher mold. He's 5'10", pushing 190. He's probably going to be up at 200 pretty soon. Combination of power and speed, which is what Miami wants in their offense. the comparison the coach made was to NFL star running back Chris Johnson. And it's funny, the coach actually installed Titans blocking schemes and the blocking schemes from Chris Johnson's college as well. I think it was East Carolina, where where they would sort of run these different types of blocking schemes for for zone and all this other stuff that that he could succeed in, where he's just a one-cut guy and downhill and gone. So that sort of I thought was funny. But yeah, Miami's taken now, I think, a handful of commits. Am I right, Izubee?
Yeah, I believe 5 now or 4 now or 5 now.
Yeah. I think it's 5. And, you're not seeing the 5 stars yet, and people get anxious about it. Oh, we're ranked 40, whatever. What's happening? There's so much time left. There's no reason for anyone to be worried about a lack of commitments, the lack of quality commitments. Things can change. If one of these players who's committed has a bad senior season, Miami can move on. They do it all the time. You find somebody better, This is just a starting point, and I think it's a fine starting point. I have no problem with any of the 5 commitments so far.
Yeah, that was a kind of a perfect transition. What I was going to say.
Well, you talked to Chris, so why don't you share your thoughts, Izubee?
So yeah, with Chris, him kind of being an underrated or under-recruited guy, he's real confident in his craft. He kind of doesn't, believe in all the hype and all that stuff. And when I asked him, like, hey, why Miami? What stood out about the Hurricanes? He literally just said Tim Harris, and that's all he said. He's a real quiet guy. He said Tim Harris. I was like, so what about Tim Harris? He was like, when Tim Harris was at UCF, he was recruiting me really heavy because UCF and Louisville were the 2 schools that were kind of really competing with Miami in his commitment. He told me when Tim Harris came to Miami, he texted him. He said, hey, this worked out perfectly. Like, just this fate. I'm in Miami now. You've always wanted to be a Miami Hurricane now. Let's get this ball rolling. So in January, when he got the offer, he was one of the kids that we saw, the most on campus most frequently throughout the spring. And I'm not too surprised that he was one of the guys that kind of pulled the trigger early and committed to Miami. So I like what I see from him on film. Obviously, I'm not going to be like, hey, this guy's the next Chris Johnson, like his coach said, but he does have a elite trait, which is speed. And with guys that are under the radar or hidden gems, I feel like they have to have that one elite thing, and his is speed. And I like what Miami's kind of doing in that backfield with Chris Johnson last year and Chris Whitley-Humphrey this year. So, I saw a funny tweet. Pop Cooney tweeted out last year we got the Ferrari, and Chris's nickname is Hellcat, and we have a Hellcat and a Ferrari in the backfield. So they think it's going to be a track meet in the backfield of Miami. I think it's a good fit for them, keeping a local guy home. I feel like over the next year, this season, he's got to kind of blossom a little bit, because I looked into him a little bit. 1,000 rushing yards in 7 games with only 70 carries. I was kind of like, all right, is this a typo? Is this a mistake? When I went on Max, I'm like, all right, what's going on here? But no, 1,066 yards, 8 touchdowns on 70 carries, over 100 yards rushing a game. Kid's real efficient. He's not getting beat up, 20, 25 carries a game. So he's making, his runs worthwhile, and that's something I really like about him, a really efficient back. So with
I know you're going to move on, so I don't want you to move on yet. So there was first of all, he had 101 carries, and they were missing a couple of games in there. Okay. But still, I think he had a ridiculous amount of yards, 1,500, maybe 8 touchdowns. He's going to break the school record in the first game next year for career rush yards. But what I wanted to ask you is, before you move on, because I could tell, I know you well enough to know when you were about to move on to the next subject. I don't want you to be like, which leads me into the perfect segue, and then I have to be like, no, and ruin another segue of yours. So that's why I cut you off. So I want to know from you, because you're, 4 or 5 years younger than me. Do you think that recruits should have their moment? That college coaches, not just at Miami, but everywhere, shouldn't send out these signals? Oh, we just got a commitment. Do you think they should wait? Do you think reporters should not put in crystal balls after a coach has already sent out the signal? I mean, because let's face it, then all the fans are like, who committed? Who committed? As reporters, we're stuck. Do we tell fans who it is? Because that's basically what you're doing sometimes with a crystal ball, unfortunately. Somebody sends out the hurricane flags of commitment. You say, oh, I'm putting in a crystal ball for this guy. I'm predicting this guy to Miami. I don't know the answer. Like, as reporters, we're in a box. It's very difficult because we're supposed to be news providers. So, you were recently a football player yourself. I don't know how high level you were. I don't know what NFL stars you were compared to, but what is your thought? Do you think that it's okay for coaches to do it, but not for reporters to do it? Do you think it's okay for coaches and reporters to do it in conjunction, like what happened here? Do you think nobody should do it? Just let the student athlete announce when he's ready and just shock everybody? Or, what do you think?
I think, honestly, it's kind of weird because how recruitment has kind of evolved. Like, one thing that I'm going to bring into this is when guys kind of used to decommit or commit to a program, I was like, all right, he's committed. It's over. Nothing else has happened. Now, if a guy commits to a program, he would just come out with another graphic and say, hey, I'm committed to this program. Forget these guys. So I feel like everything has changed. I remember growing up watching the ESPN or Under Armour All American game or whichever high school game. I think throughout the whole show there was guys committing here, committing there, kind of having their stage. Hey, I'm on national TV now. Guys is just dropping a graphic from Hayes Fawcett to, hey, this is my school now. Surprise everybody. So like, there's it's different now. Kind of guys like the element of surprise. I know when Jeremiah Smith committed, it was like this kid just said he's gonna wait it out. Now he's just committed to Ohio State. So I'm not a fan of guys kind of throwing out the flag. I know someone on our message board yesterday said, "Hey, Pat is just throw out the bat signal. Who do you think it's gonna be?" I mean, that's kind of cool. Like, guessing who it's gonna be. But I'm kind of an old school guy, even though I'm a little bit younger. I like, hey, you announce this is your big moment. No leaks come out. Everybody's still questioning to the end of the day. Forget about the crystal balls. Forget about Mario crystal ball. Just announce your commitment. So that's just my 2 cents on that kind of leaking and hey guys, dropping hints here and there. So not the biggest fan of it, but hey, can't change how everyone commits and does their thing.
Yeah, because I don't even know how. Honestly, usually I have an opinion on everything. On this, I really don't, because I sort of am fed up with the way the announcements go nowadays, with the craziness and the insanity, and these student athletes. They just seem it's just over the top. It's sort of like what's that called? The when you have a baby and you announce a gender announcement, whatever it is.
Gender reveal.
People are like shooting rifles at balloons and it explodes into blue or pink or something. I mean, just tell people. So to me, it's become this gender reveal. When they are making these announcements, it becomes this huge drawn out thing where it's hours and hours and hours of just speculation, because a coach will send out a tweet and then someone will put in a crystal ball prediction. And then, people are like, oh, it's probably this guy or that guy. And they just got to wait and wait and wait. And then he commits. And then a month later, he decommits. And then he recommits. My favorite was Lance Leggett, who's a little before your time. He decommitted from Miami 3 times and still wound up Miami Hurricane in the end. So, that was my favorite. I joke with him about it all the time now. Because he's actually still involved with Miami, because he's actually opened up a peanut. I don't know if it's a factory or a farm or what you call it, but he distributes peanuts all over the place, including for the University of Miami. So when they want peanuts.
Yes, hopefully Chris isn't the next Chris Leggett or anything like that with the 3 or 4 decommitments or anything like that. But kind of just sticking on the commitment watch, there's another guy that Miami, is trending in the right direction with, in Isaiah Thomas. No, not the basketball player for the Pistons and the Celtics and all that good stuff. He's actually out of Clearwater International Academy up in Clearwater, native of Toronto, Canada, as a 3-star safety. He recently visited the University of Miami, was there on Thursday, Friday, and spent the majority of the spring game there. He's a guy that really, really likes Miami. He's built a really strong connection with defensive back coach Jamil Adai as well. Knows some of his family back in Canada. When I spoke to him, he told me that was pretty interesting. But Matt, I wanted to ask you this as well. He's another 3-star guy. It feels like Miami's just really, hammering home the 3 stars. A lot of fans are kind of saying, what's going on here? Why are we getting the big guys? Is that something they should be concerned about with Miami really pushing after these 3-star guys?
Right. Well, that's what I was addressing before. You have a safety who hasn't gotten a rating yet. You have 3 3-stars on the board right now and a 4-star in Chance Robinson. And, hypothetically, if Isaiah Thomas were to commit, that's another 3-star. You're not really helping yourself with your average star ranking. I don't care about stars. I really don't. And like I said in yesterday's show, what all stars systems tells me is how college ready, tangible wise, the student athlete is right now, how high he can jump, how fast he can run, how big he is, and maybe his production in terms of tackles and yards or whatever it may be, depending on his position. That's about it. It doesn't tell you 3 years from now how some of these college coaches are projecting things. And let's face it, college coaches are paid millions of dollars to make the correct decisions that will help their programs win games. And the people doing the rankings are only paid $800,000 a year. No, I don't know how much they're paid, but they're not paid millions of dollars, okay? I'm sorry to all the analysts out there. You're not paid millions of dollars. Maybe you think you should be. But if an analyst was that good at projecting all these guys, he'd be getting paid millions of dollars and probably be a head coach at a major college program. Not that these analysts aren't excellent at what they do, but what they do is different than what a college coach does. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to downplay analysts. What they're doing is saying, right now, here's what we see. These aren't, it'd be great if they did a star rating for 3 years from now. Here's what we think his rating should be. That's the rating I want to see. I want to see a guy who's 5'10", 165 now, but runs a 4.35 has whatever intangibles work-wise. I was talking to, who was I talking to yesterday? I was talking to Marcellus Pulliam, okay? I talked to Marcellus Pulliam, and he's waking up right now at 4:30 in the morning every day. Not the most highly rated guy in the world, but this is a guy who goes to bed at 10:30 at night, and he's up at 4:30 in the morning every single day because he wants to get work in for football before school. He can't do it after school because he runs track for his school. He runs the 100, 200, and 4x1. So he has one choice, which is don't run track for my school and do my football workout afterwards, or wake up at 4:30 in the morning so I can get to school and start my workout at 5 in the morning before school. And that's what he does. And I talked to another prospect who's also arriving, who says his biggest transition is, after talking to his buddy Robbie Washington, is going to be waking up at 5 a.m. He says when Robbie said we're waking up at 5 a.m., he was like, what? And that was Robert Stafford. It's not a secret. We're going to write a story on Robert at some point too. Robert Stafford is not waking up at 5 in the morning. He doesn't have to, though, because he's getting the work in, but he's getting it in after school, which is fine. He's doing up to 3 hours of work a day. There's nothing wrong with that. But my point is, these are intangibles. These aren't things the analysts are researching. The analysts aren't talking to every, assistant coach, position coach, different people around the school, about whatever this particular person may have going on in their life. That might be a signal that they're going to be an outstanding football player down the road. Art Kehoe, who was a longtime offensive line coach, he used to almost refuse to offer players until their senior year of high school because he felt like he wanted to see the difference between them as a junior and senior physically, because he says there's such a big difference every single year growing up when you're, at that age. A student athlete can put on 30 pounds in a year, 40 pounds in a year, and just look totally different on the field also. So there's a lot more that goes into it. That's basically what I'm trying to say in a very long-winded fashion. Steven's not here, so I'm trying to channel my inner Steven and just talk constantly.
Yeah, the stash is under the weather today, so we're letting Steven get a break. But no, I really like what you said about Pullman. Obviously, he's kind of a different type of three-star. I think he's like 6'2", 200-something pounds. He's a physical specimen, but just you don't know what these guys are, the work they're putting in behind the scenes. Track guy waking up at 4:30 a.m. God, that's not fun at all. I've from prior experience waking up that early, but just different things go behind these factors. Oh, he's a 3-star, he's a 4-star. Hey, guys, at the end of the day, stars are out the window. Like Francis Malgo said, I was a 5-star coming in Miami. Now I'm on the practice field, and we're all no stars. We're just Miami Hurricanes. So that's definitely something worthwhile thinking when you're thinking about these 3-stars and no-star guys. And to kind of just wrap up the recruiting talk this morning, we also have a nice story on Los Alamitos 2024 defensive end T.A. Cunningham, who is trending towards Miami right now. He was also one of the many visitors at the spring game. And he's really liking Miami. He was here during their junior day in February, I believe, or late March. He's built a strong relationship with Jason Taylor. Rumor has it he might be playing his high school senior year in Miami. Do not quote me on that. Do not print that anywhere. That is just rumor has it. Whispering.
It's already printed in Steven's story.
Okay,
too late.
Too late for that. Well, he might be coming to South Florida, so he's going to be right on the doorstep of the Miami Hurricanes. And they're looking to add defensive ends from the West Coast, or defensive linemen from the West Coast in general, with him, Aiden Burdell, Elijah Rushing. So make sure to check that story out on the site this morning as well. Switching gears, spring football has wrapped up, and Matt has done another phenomenal job of coming up with an amazing story. I don't know how you do it, Matt. This is why you get paid the big bucks. Instead of deal or no deal, this is buy or don't sell. So, Matt, out of all the stuff we've watched, the millions of hours we spent on the green tree watching spring football, let's go over what some things you're buying and some things you're selling with the Miami Hurricanes spring recap right now.
Well, first of all, I don't do well with compliments because I never get them. This is probably the first compliment I've had, I think, since I covered the team in 2001, when people were saying, I think they were saying how good the team was, but I thought they were saying how good I was doing. So I appreciate that, Izubee. Thank you. But yeah, so the buy, I think you said buy or don't sell the first time, which maybe would have been better because, buy or hold, I guess, if it's a stock, I don't know. But yeah, we did buy or sell. I just decided to put this weird thing together. And I don't know if you have it in front of you, Izubee, but if I told you the Miami wide receivers need a top transfer edition, would you buy or sell that? Are you buying into that, or you don't think it's necessary?
After watching Jacoby George, I might sell. I'm not buying it.
All right, so you and I disagree on that. Miami's defense will be one of the best in the ACC this year under Lance Skidry. Are you buying into that, or you're not buying into that? One of the best in the ACC this year.
I'm buying into that.
I'm not. This is the exact definition of somebody who's an optimist and somebody who's not. All right. Jakari Brown is a future star. Are you buying into that or not?
I'm selling it.
I bought that. Are you looking at are you looking at the story or not?
I do not have the story pulled up. I'm just focused on our stream right now.
Wow. Okay. James Williams should move to linebacker. Are you buying that he should, or you selling that one?
I'm selling that one.
Okay, we got that one the same.
Okay.
And then Mario Cristobal's vision for the culture of the program has arrived. You believe that, or you don't believe that?
I'm selling it a little bit still.
I'm selling that too. All right, we agreed on 2 out of 5, 40%. Same grade my son got on his final exam. Not too bad.
Yeah, no, kind of going back to one of the best defense in the ACC. I kind of want to get your opinion on that. Kind of break it down why you went with that decision.
So Lance Guidry is coming in with a very complex system. This is not your basic, players basically said Kevin Steele's defense was very simple compared to this one. And Lance Guidry's goal this spring was to put in 60% of his defense. The entire offense is in by comparison, okay? So I think there's an adjustment period. I think Lance Guidry is the kind of coach who you're going to need him here for multiple years to really get guys that understand it the ins and outs of it, where he can run everything he wants to run. I think there's going to be a lot of games this year where Lance Guidry has to really scale back what he would prefer to do against a particular offense because he feels like his players aren't going to fully grasp what they need to do. And one bust is a touchdown. I mean, you saw it in the Ray Joseph touchdown. There was nobody within 10 yards of Ray Joseph. I mean, just nobody even thought that they were supposed to cover him. A complete bust. And that's just a small example, but that's the kind of thing you don't want to have happen. And Lance Guidry's typical defense he runs, he loves to leave his cornerbacks on an island one-on-one and blitz a safety or blitz a linebacker. It's a 4-2-5, and he tries to get guys coming at you from all different directions and moving around and confusing the quarterback. But it can also confuse your own team. And so that's why right now I don't think they'll be in the top 3 or 4 in the ACC. I think they'll be a middle of the pack defense, maybe even top half. Wouldn't surprise me at all, which is fine because guess what? Last year, as maybe people think the defense was good last year, it was not. The bad offense just made the defense look a little better. The defense was not good last season. The numbers, I don't have them in front of me, but I think they were in the below top 50 for almost every single category that mattered in the nation. And it takes time to fix that. It's really a lot of the same personnel. They lost Darrell Jackson. They lost Mitchell Agude. They do have a bunch of guys back, and they added some freshmen, but you can't expect the freshmen to do too much other than Ruben Bain. And they added some transfers, and of all the transfers, I think the only one right now that I'd say is going to be a definite difference maker. And I know they're high on Branson Dean, but I'm just based on what I've seen. I'm not seeing that. So I think the only real major difference maker I've seen is maybe Devontae Brown, and they also lost Tyreek Stevenson and DJ Ivey. I know fans don't love DJ Ivey, whatever, but those were your 2 starting corners. So, I mean, there were some losses, and I'm not sure personnel-wise that they're that much above what they were last year, just in terms of pure talent on defense. So that's concerning, especially when you're learning a new defense. It's going to take a little time. So, I don't know if that explained it. It probably just confused people more, but that's what I tend to do.
Thank you for that, man. I'm just glad we didn't get a 6-minute food review after that.
Right. I don't know. People hate my food reviews. What's wrong with a good food review? I don't who doesn't want to eat food? Everybody wants to eat food. Don't you want to hear where you should or shouldn't eat? I mean, it's literally you don't have to have football to live, although some people might argue with that. You do have to have food to live. The food portion of the show is way more important than the football portion because it will help you thrive and be healthy and live your life. Mushroom hummus, it has vegetables, it has chickpeas, and it will fill you up. And it even has some bread. It should be at the top of the food pyramid. Everybody should eat it. That's it.
Well, now
everybody complains about the food, whatever.
Every time I'm hosting, so I'll make sure we get our Matt Shodell food review in. But until the next time I am hosting, let's move on to our last kind of 2 topics talking about spring football. Matt also did another amazing job with breaking down position by position of the quarterbacks. We're not going to go too deep in that, so that's why we have it on the site for you to read. We also look into the transfer portal that recently opened. I know a lot of people want to see additions, subtractions, all that good stuff, so make sure to check out our story on that. And to wrap up today's show, we have some very, very sad news. Isaiah Wong is no longer a Miami Hurricane. He will forego his final year of eligibility and declare for the NBA draft. And later this morning, we will have the chance to speak with Mr. Wong and Jim Larrañaga following that decision by Isaiah Wong, one of the best, in my opinion, of my 1 year watching Miami basketball in real time, face to face, getting around these guys, one of the best athletes, people, person, whatever he is that I've met. Real humble guy, real funny guy as well. So Matt, obviously, we took a look a little bit into, the whole Isaiah Wong is leaving. Just moving forward, how big of a necessity is it going to be for Miami to fill that void? And do you think they'll be able to find someone in the transfer portal or on the team that can fulfill what Isaiah Wong is leaving behind?
Well, it's funny. People get so upset when I mention NIL about anything. They say, why does Matt keep talking about NIL? Why is NIL this, NIL that? You already have said that to us. Every NIL situation is different. Now, in basketball, as it pertains to NIL right now, Isaiah Wong would have stayed. He would have stayed. Gary posted this as well yesterday on the message boards. He would have stayed if there was enough NIL money in the coffers, and there just wasn't. It's not an unlimited supply of NIL money. People think that this is just like the old days where boosters would hand you a bag of cash and give you $1 million under the table. These are business people who are looking for a return on their investment, and it's not that easy. These collectives are able to do it a little easier because they're borderline illegal, but nobody's monitoring them. But that basically means a collective really is like that booster under the table with a bag of cash. In Miami's case, the only real face on it right now is John Ruiz, and he signed a deal with Isaiah last year. Whatever, I don't have the information what happened with it this year, but apparently whatever the numbers were, they weren't good enough for Isaiah to where he felt, what else can I show besides being ACC Player of the Year to try and go on to the NBA? And I guess he's hoping he'll latch on with a team. I know there's some projections where he won't even be drafted, but I guess he's going to take his chances. But this is why Miami really needs not just one person, but essentially a collective that all these other programs are doing, which I honestly thought the NCAA would crack down on, but they are just so scared to get sued and just have, things get even crazier that they're just apparently sort of turning a blind eye to the collectives. Miami, I from what I've heard, is trying to put together and has actually a collective, but it's trying to put together a collective that actually has the same influence nationally as some of these SEC teams that are just building these giant collective war chests that they can spend on guys. So not a great sign when we hear that Isaiah would have stayed if the NIL deal was right, and obviously it wasn't, and he left, because that's a guy where if he returns, you're ranked in the top 5 starting the year and have a chance at the national title. Without him, there's a lot of question marks because Nigel Pack's at point guard. Norchad Omier is a big guy down low who's going to average a double-double. And then Wooga Poplar should be better, but that's 3 guys. And Wooga Poplar isn't Isaiah Wong. And Omier is a post presence, which is great, but there's no other big guy that can help him or that helped him last year. And then Nigel Pack, from what I saw, he likes to be a spot-up 3-point shooter from half court or whatever, but he's not a guy who's going to drive that often and beat his man off the dribble and do these crazy layups like Isaiah could. He doesn't break down a defense like that. So you have to now find somebody in the portal that's a big man who's really, really good. And now you have to find a shooting guard that's really, really good. And if the money wasn't there for Isaiah Wong, which is what we heard, how much is there for the 2 guys that you now need to get in the portal that have to be top guys to really make this a national championship team? It's a little concerning. Again, I'm not privy to the numbers and what was offered. Maybe it was a ton of money, and Isaiah just said, listen, the NBA contracts are so big, I got to just go for that. But when we see who they either get or don't get out of the portal, we will have a very good answer for where the basketball NIL situation stands. And people are asking on the message boards yesterday about, well, does this mean the football NIL is also having problems or whatever? They're separate. Basketball NIL and football NIL, it's not the University of Miami controlling it, okay? The University of Miami football program is its bread and butter. That, if you're a business person and you want to return on your investment for an NIL deal with a student athlete, it's going to be a football player, because that's right now what makes Miami tick. You could just see it on the message boards. Nobody was even that interested until Miami was in the Elite 8 in the Final 4. But they were in the Sweet 16. There was very little. Like, we monitor the clicks on our stories and the message board posts. There wasn't even that much interest when they were in the Sweet 16, which is just shocking. But the football team, if the football team loses a game, I mean, the message board is insane. The clicks on the stories are insane. If they beat a good team, message board is insane. Clicks are insane. This is a football school. It's always going to be a football school. It doesn't matter if Miami basketball wins a national championship. It's still going to be a football school, in my opinion. And I was here in 2001 covering that team. I know what it looks like when the football team's rolling, and it looks a heck of a lot different than when the basketball team was in the Final Four. I mean, there's an electricity on campus. There's an electricity in the entire tri-state area, if there is such a thing as a tri-state area. I'm from New York, Broward, Palm Beach, and
they call it the Tri-County area or something like that.
And Dade. Tri-state. That's what I'm a New Yorker. It's a tri-state area. So Miami needs to get back to that in football. And you know what? When they do get back to that, and it's a when, it's not an if, they will. Mario's working on it. It's going to take a couple of years more. But when they get back to that, it's going to be that self-fulfilling prophecy like it used to be, where all the top recruits want to come here and be part of it. Who doesn't want to be in Miami? And they used to turn away guys that Alabama and Ohio State and Georgia wanted. You know, they used to say, we don't have room for you. Sorry. Like, that's what I want them to get back to. That's what they need to get back to. And they need an NIL for that. I mean, unfortunately. But they have the recruiters for it. They have the facilities for it. They just need the NIL piece to still be there. And in football, I know that they're proceeding at a level I think they'll be fine. And in basketball right now, there are some issues that need to be rectified. I don't remember your original question, but yeah, I don't think it had anything to do with that. I think it was about the rest of the team. You know, yeah, if they can get transfers, I mean, they'll get transfers. The question is what quality transfers. They'll get 2 transfers who will come in and start. They'll probably try to get another transfer or 2 besides that for depth, but it's just hard to get a depth guy out of the portal that's any good because those guys aren't coming in to be backups. That's not their goal when they go into the portal from whatever school they're at.
Yeah, so we'll definitely be on portal watch for both the men's and I was about to say men's football team. Like there's a girls football team for the football team and the men's basketball.
There is girls football, you know. Have you watched girls 7-on-7 or girls flag football?
I've seen that in high school, picking up some traction lately. I was like, oh, good for the ladies, you know, doing their thing on the football field, doing celebrations and stuff like that. But
yeah, the ladies used to also have a professional league. I don't know if they still do or not. I know Gary used to go to all the games and sit in the front row. I don't remember if they have it anymore.
And then hit up Hooters right after the Gary Furman special. But that is all that we have for today on this morning on today's episode of Good Morning CaneSport. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in and starting your day off with myself and Matt Shodell. For Matt Shodell, I'm Izubee Charles. Thank you for tuning in and have a great rest of your day.